Hello, this is Douglas Robinson. I am a solutions consultant with Beyond20. Today we're going to be reviewing how to recreate the new specifics picker expression that is used to determine which specifics forms will be selected in Cherwell 8.1.2 and above. If you are upgrading to Cherwell from version 8.1.1 or below, or if you're running on a version that's below this, you will have to create this expression and set the relevant fields to populate from this expression manually instead of using the group map. Simply upgrading to version 8.1.2 will not add this new expression or reconfigure this field, as those are content and those are going to be related to the version of the content that is on your system at the time that you installed it. So this video will go over how to recreate that expression. Now, for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, the specifics forms on your incident form, or the specifics forms on your incident object, are going to load based on the current record in the incident owns specifics relationship. This relationship picks a group member of the specifics group based on the specifics type ID field on incident, which is highlighted over here on the left, so we can see all of our fields on incident. And while this field for specifics type ID is going to determine what type of specifics group member is loaded for the incident owns specifics relationship, this field is populated in version 8.1.2 and above using a expression, while in other versions it's populated using a group map. So right now I have both Cherwell 8.1.2 and Cherwell 7.02 open so I can compare the two and show you the differences. In 7.02, the specifics type ID field auto-populates using a group map titled specifics. If you are upgrading from a version 8.1.1 or below system, you likely have this setup where you're using the populate using group map feature. However, if you have just installed a new version of Cherwell, you will have a calculated value for your specifics type ID field that will use a specifics picker expression. Now, this expression has 6 clauses in it, which will calculate out the specifics type ID based on a field on the incident subcategory, incident category, or service table. Or if each of those are empty, then it will use the specifics generic ID, which is a stored value that is also included in the version 8.1.2 content. We will go over how to recreate this expression. The first things that we'll need to do are add the new fields that are included in the newer content onto the incident subcategory, incident category, and service tables. So I'm going to move into my window that I have open into a Cherwell version 7 database. And the first thing I'm going to do is go into my service table, and I'm going to add 2 fields. One of these is going to be named specifics type name. I'm going to give it 100 characters for the size, and the other one is going to be named specifics type ID. And I'm going to give the specifics type ID field a size of 42. Now I'm going to go into the specifics type name fields properties. I'm going to open the validation tab, and I'm going to select other validation types. This field is going to be validated off of a group business object. It's going to be validated off of members of a group business object, and we're going to select the specifics group. This way a user will be able to select a member of the specifics group using a drop-down on the service form. Once we've configured the specifics type name field, we're going to open the field properties for the specifics type ID fields. And we're going to go again to validation and auto-populate. And here we're going to have the auto-populate for the specifics type ID field, update when there is a change to the specifics type name field. And when we do that, we'll get the option for a business object ID. Now, if you were watching closely enough, you'll notice that this business object ID radio button showed up specifically when I selected the specifics type name field. This showed up because my specifics type name is validated off of members of a group business object. So when I auto-populate off of a field that's validated off of a list of business objects, I get the option to auto-populate with the ID for the selected business object. Now that I have my specifics type ID and specifics type name on the service table, I simply need to add these fields onto the incident category and incident subcategory tables as well. The process for doing this is going to be exactly the same. Alright, now that I've added these fields to the subcategory, the category, and the service table, I feel like it's time to actually add the fields onto the form. So we're going to go on to one of our forms. I'm going to start with the subcategory table, but really you can start with whichever table you'd like to. And I am going to add the specifics type name field onto the very bottom of the form. Then I'm going to go back to the incident category table, and I'm going to do the same thing here. And finally, I'm going to go back to my major business object of service, and I'm going to find somewhere to add the specifics type name field on this form as well. Now that I've added my fields to the service category and subcategory objects and to the forms, I'm going to create a new stored value to hold the business object rec ID of the specifics generic group member. This is going to be the group member of the specifics object that is going to be selected when no other specifics form can be selected. So we can add this stored value either to the global or to the blueprint folder. I'm going to leave it in global. And I'm not going to immediately set the value of this field because I need to go and get the value of the field, and I'll show you how to do that as well. After we've created the stored value, we're going to go and find our supporting object, our specifics group objects, and we're going to find the specifics generic group member. I'm then going to drill down into the business object, either by double-clicking on the object here or clicking the Edit Business Object button. And then I'm going to open up the Business Object Properties through the button at the top of the screen. We'll scroll down to the Advanced page and select the Business Object ID button. Here we'll be given a view to copy the current object's record ID, and this is useful for any situation where you need to get the internal ID for the business object that you're working with. Now that I've copied this out of this object, I'm going to go back to my stored value. We can see here we have our stored value of specifics generic ID, and then I'm going to paste in that record ID that I just copied out of the specifics generics business object properties into the window for the stored value. Going to click OK, and now I've configured my stored value. Now all that's left for us to do is to create our specifics picker expression and set the specifics type ID field on incident to calculate based off of that expression. So I'm going to create a new expression. I need to make sure it's under the incident association. And I'm going to name it specifics picker. This is going to be a case expression because we're going to be assigning a value based on whichever of the following conditions evaluate to true. So we'll have a different value based on which condition is set to true. Now I'm going to reference the other specifics picker expression that is included in the Cherwell 8.1.2 content to make sure that I build out this expression correctly. Our first clause is going to be that if, or our first case is going to be that if incident subcategory dot specifics type ID is not empty, then we will use that specifics type ID on that table. So here I'm going to scroll through the list of objects that are available for the incident. I'm going to select my incident subcategory object, and I'm going to find my specifics type ID field. I want to make sure that this field is not empty, which means it's filled in, and essentially I am saying here that if my specifics type ID field is filled in or it's not empty, I want to use that field to generate my specifics type ID value. Next, we're going to be doing the exact same thing for both the category table and the service table. Essentially, we're going to have different cases for each of these three that check whether or not the specifics type ID field is filled out on each of those. Now, the order that these show up in is actually important because you want to have a specifics form on your subcategory table show up first. If you have a specifics form on your subcategory and your category and your service table, you want to make sure that the most specific one at the bottom of this hierarchy is used. So in order to facilitate that, we're making sure that the most specific item here, which is the subcategory, is the one that is evaluated first. So next, after I've added my second case, I'm going to select the incident category table. There is one more thing that we need to do before we can completely write out this expression. We need to add a relationship from incident to incident category. I'm going to back out of this case expression. Then I'm going to save this specifics picker expression so that I can get back to it later. We're going to select our incident object, and then we're going to edit the relationship for it. I'm going to name this relationship incident links incident category. We're going to link one incident category, and incident category is one of our lookup tables. Our link is going to store the incident category field on the incident table, And as we can see here, we don't actually have a category ID field on the incident, so I'm going to create one. Now we have a link between incident and incident category, where the incident category ID field matches on both of these records, or on both of these objects. Now I need to make sure that the incident category field that's being used in this relationship actually gets filled in somewhere. Now I want the incident category ID field to be filled in whenever there's a change to the category field. Now our category field is already set up and it's validated from the incident category.incident category table and field. If I have a validated field, then I can have my other field, which is going to be incident category ID, auto-populate off of that table to get the record ID for this field. So I'm going to open up my incident category ID field's properties. I'm going to open the validation and auto-populate section. I'm going to take the box next to auto-populate, have it update when there is a field to the category, or when there is an update to the category field. And when I do this, I get the option to select other fields from the incident category lookup table to update this field with. I'm going to select the rec ID field because I need the record ID for my incident category in order to populate this relationship for incident category. And once I've done that, I can move back to the home screen and go back to editing my expression. So I'll go into the expressions manager, find my specifics picker expression, and then I can keep editing from there. So now, in my list, I should see an incident category object, and I can select the specifics type ID field from there. Just like the previous case, this case is going to check whether or not the incident category.specifics type ID field is not empty. And if it's not empty, it's going to assign the incident category.specifics type ID field. Finally, we're going to do this with service. I'm going to select my service object, and then the specifics type ID field. And if it is not empty, then I'm going to assign a value of service.specifics type ID. Now we've gone through the first three conditions here. We'll want to build out the second three. It's going to start out in the same order of subcategory, category, service. And here we're going to check whether each of these fields is empty, and if it is empty, we're going to assign the specifics generic ID stored value that we had set up earlier. So here I'm going to go to my incident subcategory table and select the specifics type ID field. I'm going to change the operator to empty instead of not empty. And if it is empty, I'm going to select a stored value, which will be my specifics generic ID stored value. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the subcategory table, for the category table, and also for the service table. And once you've selected the stored value once, you'll have it in your most recently used list under stored values, and you can select it from there instead of having to browse for it a second time. Alright, we have now finished creating our specifics picker expression. We can see the conditions here are identical to the ones that appear in our version 8 system. And now that we've completed this expression, we can now set our incident specifics type ID field to calculate based on this expression instead of auto-populating using a group map. So I'm going to close the expression manager and open up my incident object. I'm then going to sort the fields here by name so I can find my specifics type ID field more easily. You should find it either just after or just before these statistics fields, depending on how you've sorted. And once I open the field's properties, which you can do, by the way, by double-clicking on the icon for the field, I know I tend to just rush into the field properties by double-clicking on this icon, so I feel like I should share that shortcut with you. If you don't want to use that shortcut, you can get into those field properties by clicking the button at the bottom of the screen. After you've done that and you go into the validation and auto-populate screen, you can untick the populate using map box, and we can finally go to the properties section and calculate a value using our new expression. Here I'm going to select my specifics picker expression and click OK. And after that I can save and publish my blueprint. Now, one thing you will need to keep in mind, once you've done this, you will have to go through your lookup tables, such as incident subcategory, and you'll have to actually enter some data for your specifics type ID field. Because once you add this field, it's going to be empty. So immediately after you make this change, your incident object is going to be looking for a value for specifics forms in a table that does not have these values. So after you apply this blueprint with this change, make sure that you go through your incident subcategory table or your service and category tables to make sure that your service catalog has the correct specifics items selected for each category, because it will no longer be using the group map. And after you fill in the data for your specifics type name record, you will have done all of the things that you need to do to have your specifics forms calculate from the specifics picker expression that is available in the newer content instead of the old group maps. This has been an instructional video. If you'd like to see other videos like this one, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/beyond20llc. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to post them in the comments section below or tweet to us. You can always find us on Twitter, and you'll see other ways to contact us immediately after I stop talking.